Hey guys, welcome back. I'm going to be repotting an Oncidium Orchid in this video. It's a brand new one that I just purchased. If you watched the video before this with the Phalaenopsis, we did a repot of the Phalaenopsis that I just purchased as well. This one is a fun little find. It was full price. I bought it for $20. It's in a teeny weeny little pot, as you can see. This is Oncidium Violetta von Holm. Very, very pretty. Okay, so what we're going to do is transplant this into this lovely little orchid pot. It's the same pot as we used for this Phalaenopsis. Orchids in general are epiphytes, and what epiphytes are is that they are basically air plants. They live in the trees. The roots are basically for support and just getting nutrients. So they don't want to be planted in soil, and there are exceptions. Some orchids do grow in soil, but this particular one does not. So it likes its air circulation around its roots. So the soil that I'm using today is going to be the hydroponic terracotta balls with the charcoal centers. I'm also going to be adding some sphagnum moss into the mix. Just going to add some more in here because when I repotted the Phalaenopsis I used quite a bit of the sphagnum. I add the sphagnum moss in there. It tells me when the soil needs or the media needs to be watered. When the sphagnum moss gets dry to the touch, I know that it's ready to have a drink. I like to have something that gives me the tell because I'm afraid that if I don't have that, it's either going to run too dry or I'm not going to have enough water, or it's going to be over-watering. Another soil option that you can use is the orchid bark. I do believe this is, what is it? It's a fir bark of some sort. Coconut fibers and whatnot. Doesn't really give me a good explanation. It says component western bark mini nuggets, limestone and coconut husk chunks. So, but anyway, that you can use that as well. Again, when you're first initially potting it up, start with a bowl and soak it in water for 20 minutes, 30 minutes. Let it get some moisture going on in there. And I also add some fertilizer. I just added about 4, maybe 5 drops of fertilizer into this mix. This is a 10-15-10. With orchids, you generally want to use something with a higher middle number. You don't necessarily need a lot of nitrogen, which is the first number. You want the middle number. You want to produce flowers. Alright, so this has been mixed in, sitting in there for quite some time. And the fertilizer gets absorbed into the sphagnum moss and into the little terracotta balls. So Oncidiums are a wonderful plant. If you have a bright spot, doesn't necessarily need to be direct sun, but a very bright location, Oncidiums will grow well for you. I've grown it in a north-facing window, right in the window, and it did well for me. It did well. So it got good light, but it wasn't a direct location. So that kind of tells you that it's a fairly tolerant plant. It's fairly easy to grow, and they have beautiful, beautiful flowers, as you can see. A neat feature with the Oncidium orchids is they have this what's called a pseudobulb. This bulb is kind of like a camel's hump. It stores the moisture in here, and when there's no moisture to be found, you'll notice that this starts to get wrinkly. It's using the water supply up that it's stored, kind of like a cactus. So that tells you that this one could be on the drier side more often, and it's another tell that it's time to water or your plant is doing all right. So this one here is also planted in sphagnum moss. I don't like to plant them in sphagnum moss strictly because it tends to stay too moist for too long. Oops. It's really jammed in there. I'm trying to push myself out of here. Really pack it in there. Try not to damage anything. It's making it hard. Let's see here. When there's no air circulation with the sphagnum moss, it stays wet for way too long and it starts to kill the roots. The roots really need the air circulation. Oh, there we go. As you can see, like the Phalaenopsis, this is really packed in here. This one has a smaller root system. Let's see if this root system is as nice as the Phalaenopsis was. I don't see any root system. Oh, there's one root. I don't know whether you can really see that, but the end of it is brown. The tip is brown. That's not a good sign. That means it's been sitting in water for a little too long. How I like to water is I like to have it in a dish of water, and I soak the pot. I let it sit there for about 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and then I remove the whole thing from water, let it drain, and sit it back in its location. I don't like to keep it in water, ever. Alright, this is a little bit more difficult than the other one. Okay, this is a good example as to what too much sphagnum moss, in my experience, does to the roots. There's some nice roots in here, but there's also dead roots, and I'll show you that. See right here? Nice brown roots. That's from too much moisture. It started off as a really nice white healthy root, and see right here, all of these are brown. You don't want to see the brown. It's not good. Oh, and here, see right there at the base of this pseudobulb, it's a new little growth here. That could either be another plant, or it could be a flower spike. I think by the looks of this pseudobulb, it'll probably be another bulb, another plant, rather than a flower. This looks like an older bulb. Okay, so we're going to take some sterilized scissors. Again, rubbing alcohol with a cotton swab will sterilize your scissors. You're going to cut off all of the roots that are not healthy. In this situation, it's going to be most of them, which is unfortunate. We do have some nice white roots here. Thank goodness. So now we're ready to plant it up. I'm going to take a little bit of this old sphagnum moss, and I'm just going to cover the hole in the bottom of the pot with this. Again, the orchid pots have air circulation holes. They always want to have good air circulation. If all you have is plastic pots and you don't have holes, feel free to just punch some holes in there, whether it be with a screwdriver or just cut out holes with a knife. They really do better with good air circulation, good airflow. So we're going to throw some of these beads in here and some sphagnum moss. We're going to keep the sphagnum moss loose though in the pot. We don't want to pack it in there. We want to have, again, good airflow. Gonna throw this orchid, this Oncidium, we're gonna hold it up to where we want the bulbs to be. You don't want to submerge the pseudobulbs underneath the medium. You want to keep them just above. Again, same as a Phalaenopsis. If it's down below you'll probably get rot, and you don't want rot. Alright, so just throw some of this stuff in here. Look at all the dust that came off of this. Shucky. Filling all the little gaps in here. You can top dress with some moss if you like, but I like the look of these beads. These beads are wonderful. I'm so happy that I found them. They work perfectly because they absorb some of the moisture, so, but they're not. They allow really good air circulation, and they don't break down as fast as the bark does. So you, in theory, could have your plants growing in this for a number of years until the plant is too big for the pot, and at which time you will do a transplant. But when you use things like bark or any of the other natural materials, this breaks down, so you'll need to repot a little bit more frequently. Okay, so we got all this stuff in here. We're just gonna pack it down just a little bit, make sure that there's a good anchor in there. And again, I'll show you this. This one's going to be a little bit wobbly because, as you remember, there was very few roots on this plant, so it's going to be wobbly for a little while until the new roots come and take place and take hold. Just like the Phalaenopsis, we have the orchid just up above the soil level, above the media, because you don't want anything sitting in water. So this is the Oncidium Orchid, transplanted, ready to go. It's looking pretty happy. It's a very healthy looking plant to me. And again, I like to use these pot covers, and I just stick the pot right in there. Saves any mess, makes it look pretty, looks more finished. And when I water it, I will water it so that the water just comes to the top of the beads. If I need to add fertilizer that day, I'll add some fertilizer. And then after about 15 minutes, I will take the plant out of the pot, or out of my container, dump it out, let things dry out, and then put the plant back into its home. Never letting it sit in water. Anyway, this is the Oncidium repot, and join me on my Facebook page. Also on my blog, I will be having a written blog about repotting orchids with these two specific orchids, and maybe I've missed something that I'll have in there, not quite sure. Oh yeah, and you want to make sure to put the tags back in there so you don't forget what orchid you have. Anyway guys, happy growing, and good luck!